billion tons a year. The recent melting rate is 15% found last year. Eric Rigno, California Irvine ice scientist, was the lead author of the new report in Monday's Proceedings of the National. He said the big difference is that his satellite-based study found that East Antarctica, which used to be considered stable, is losing 56 billion tons of ice a year. Last year, several teams' work into consideration found little or no loss in East Antarctica recently and gains in the past. Melting in West Antarctica and the Antarctica Peninsula accounts for about 4/5 of the ice loss. East Antarctica is the risk of multiple meter, that is more than 10 feet, over the next century or so, Rigno said. I don't want to be an alarmist, said Rigno, but the weakness detected in East Antarctica deserve deeper study. And Richard Alley, a Pennsylvania State University scientist not involved in Rigno's, really good science. The findings are the latest sign that the world could face catastrophic consequences. Change continues unabated. In addition to more frequent droughts, heat waves, severe storms, and other extreme weather that could come with a continually warming Earth, scientists have already predicted that seas could rise nearly 3 feet globally by 2100 if the world does not sharply decrease its carbon output. But in recent years, there has been growing concern that the Antarctic could push that even higher. That kind of sea level rise would flood island communities around the globe. Global sea levels have already risen 7 to 8 inches since 1900. The new research is consistent in some ways with a major study published last year by a team of 80 scientists, but that research did not find large losses from East Antarctica, though it noted that there is a high amount of uncertainty about what is happening there. More work is needed to reconcile these new estimates, said Beata C-S-A-T-H-O, Satho, an Antarctic expert at the University of Buffalo, who was an author of the prior report.
Here's some briefs from around the world and our country. From Toronto, a Chinese court sentenced a Canadian man to death on Monday in a sudden retrial of a drug smuggling case, and Beijing said that it has denied a Canadian diplomatic immunity, ratcheting up tensions since Canada's arrest of a top Chinese technology executive last month. A Chinese court in northeastern Liaoning province announced that it had given Robert Lloyd Schellenberg the death penalty, reversing an earlier 2016 ruling that sentenced him to 15 years in prison. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau strongly condemned Monday's proceeding, suggesting that China was using its judicial system to pressure Canada over the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, chief financial officer of the Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei. In his strongest comment yet, Trudeau said all countries around the world should be concerned that Beijing is acting arbitrarily with its justice system. From Washington, House Democrats announced a sweeping investigation Monday of the pharmaceutical industry's pricing practices, jockeying for the upper hand with the Trump administration on an issue that concerns Americans across the political spectrum. Oversight and Reform Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings said he's sent letters to 12 major drug makers seeking detailed information and documents about pricing practices, drugs to treat diseases including cancer, diabetes, kidney failure, and nerve pain. Cummings, a Maryland Democrat, said he wants to find out why prices have increased so dramatically for some existing medications, as well as how drug companies determine the prices of newly introduced medicines. Actress Rose McGowan pleaded no contest Monday to a misdemeanor drug charge in Virginia after cocaine was found in a wallet she left behind at Dulles International Airport 2 years ago. Court records show she received a $2,500 fine and a suspended jail sentence at a circuit court hearing in Leesburg. The sentence was first reported by WTOP FM. She told the station she entered the plea because she just wanted it to be over. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on Monday denounced Representative Steve King, a Republican from Iowa, over his latest remarks on white supremacy, saying there is no place in the Republican Party, the Congress, or the country for an ideology of racial supremacy of any kind. King lamented last week that white supremacy and white nationalism have become offensive words. The Russian Republic of Chechnya has launched a new crackdown on gays, in which at least 2 people have died and about 40 people have been detained. LGBT activists in Russia charged Monday. 2017, more than 100 gay men were arrested and subjected to torture, and some of them killed in the predominantly Muslim region. In New Jersey, an armed man who entered a UPS processing facility in Logan Township, New Jersey, Monday morning and held 2 women hostage for several hours, was shot and killed by police as he left the building with the women, authorities said. And finally, China's 2018 trade surplus with the United States surged to a record $323.3 billion, but exports contracted in December as the delayed impact of President Donald Trump's tariff hikes started to hurt demand. Yep.
Thanks, John. From the Los Angeles Times, William Barr, President Donald Trump's nominee for Attorney General, promised Monday to permit special counsel Robert Mueller to complete his investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 campaign, and said he would be as transparent as possible in releasing the findings. On Tuesday, Democrats are expected to grill Barr, the longtime Republican lawyer and former U.S. Attorney General, about his broad views on executive power and to explain his previous criticism of Mueller's investigation and staffing decisions. But in prepared testimony before his confirmation hearing Tuesday in the Senate Judiciary Committee, Barr sought to deflect those concerns. Trump has repeatedly denied any collusion with Russia, but media reports over the weekend raised new questions about his conduct, including allegedly destroying translators' notes of his private conversations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Reporters Monday that I never worked for Russia, in his most direct response yet to a bombshell report that the FBI became so worried about his behavior toward Moscow that it opened an investigation into whether he was working on its behalf. Not only did I never work for Russia, I think it's a disgrace that you even asked that question because it's a whole big fat hoax, he continued. The White House has suggested that it might seek to classify or rewrite parts of the report to Congress or the public. Under Justice Department guidelines, the Attorney General must report to Congress when the special counsel investigation is completed. Part of the report would include any instances in which the Attorney General disagreed with the course of action being sought by Mueller. I believe it is vitally important that the special counsel be allowed to complete his investigation, Barr said in his prepared remarks. I believe it is in the best interest of everyone, the President, Congress, and most importantly, the American people, that this matter be resolved by allowing the special counsel to complete his work. He added that he also believes that it was very important that the public and Congress be informed of the results of the investigation. For that reason, he added, my goal will be to provide as much transparency as I can, consistent with the law. Barr pledged to give priority to protecting the integrity of elections by ensuring that the full might of our resources are brought to bear against foreign powers who unlawfully interfere in the electoral process. He also sought to explain a memo he wrote to Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein last year, in which he argued that the special counsel's investigation into whether Trump obstructed justice by firing FBI Director James Comey was, quote, fatally misconceived. Democrats have pointed to the memo as evidence that Barr may not be able to approach the investigation with an open mind. My memo was narrow in scope, Barr said, and focused on a specific obstruction of justice theory under a single statute that I thought, based on media reports, the special counsel might be considering. He noted that the memo did not address other theories and did not assert that the president could never obstruct justice. It was shortly after Trump fired Comey in May 2017 that the FBI began investigating whether Trump had been working on behalf of Russia against American interests. The New York Times reported Saturday. Mueller took over the inquiry when he was appointed days later. Barr, 68, said he did not pursue the nomination as Attorney General and was reluctant to be considered because he was partially retired and nearing the end of his long legal career. He said he agreed to be nominated because I believe strongly in public service revere the law, and I love the Department of Justice. It will be his fourth confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Barr previously served as Attorney General from 1991 through 1993 under President George H.W. Bush, and before that as Deputy Attorney and Assistant Attorney General. Robust view of presidential power and is well respected in Republican circles for his conservative legal views. Career officials in the Justice Department expressed relief at his nomination. He was viewed as a steady and reliable hand to take over as the nation's top law enforcement official.
A real update on the government shutdown before we move on to local and legislative news. With the government mired in shutdown week 4, President Donald Trump rejected a short-term legislative fix and dug in for more combat money. He would never, ever back down. Trump rejected a suggestion to reopen all government departments for several weeks while negotiations would commence over his demands for 5.0 wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. The president also edged away further from the idea of trying to declare a national emergency to circumvent Congress. White House officials cautioned that an emergency order remains on the table. However, some counseled against it, concerned that an emergency declaration would immediately be challenged in court. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle warned that acting under an emergency order would set a troubling precedent for executive power. Well, it's 20 minutes now after the hour, and we are going to move on to local and legislative news. And out of Lincoln, well, a Lincoln senator wants to involve state senators in witnessing state sponsors and increase transparency of the process. We are in charge of the laws. And because of that, I think we have the highest duty to make sure that the laws are carried out in the most appropriate and transparent way possible, said Senator Patty Pansing Brooks. The bill, LB 238, would require that 2 members of the legislature be present to view an execution from the time the condemned prisoner enters the execution chamber to the time he or she is pronounced dead or the execution is halted. During that time, no one would be allowed to obstruct the view of the execution process. During the execution of Carrie Dean Moore in August, about 15 minutes into the curtains were closed and did not open again for 14 minutes. That was 6 minutes after Lancaster County Attorney Pat Condon pronounced Moore dead at 10:47 a.m. and 29 minutes after the first lethal injection drug, diazepam, was administered at 10:24 a.m. I think that what happened this last time was totally shocking to me. I don't believe they, the prison officials, follow the law, and if they need it more clearly written, this shouldn't be surprising. We are not going to sit and let the government tell us, trust us, we did it properly. If that's so, then let us watch and make sure that that is happening. Corrections Department has said the members of the executive team cannot be disclosed. Execution team cannot be disclosed. That's the reasoning he used to keep records of drugs from public disclosure and for closing the curtains during surgery. If there is concern about those on the execution team being seen execution, and says they would request to wear a mask or somehow conceal their identity from witnesses. The is the corrections director. The Nebraska State Pension, the public information officer, a team to provide secure end prisoner, 2 people to the IV drugs, and a pharmaceutical chemist. During Morse's were shielded from viewing 15 minutes. Death penalty observers said it hindered transparency reporting of the effects of the drugs. Frakes explained those 14 minutes to a grand jury in December, saying that after the curtains were closed, out of respect, execution team members were brought in. During that, acting warden Robert Madsen waited 5 minutes to ensure there was no question the drugs had the chance to circulate in Moore's body and had the expected. State Patrol investigator and pathologist Robert Bowen and Lancaster County Sheriff's Captain Thomas Brookhauser examined Moore and Condon as the county coroner declared he was dead. Frakes said the last few minutes were the transition coroner and execution team left. It isn't the government to decide which part they are going to be transparent about, Pansy Brooks said. I think the law was clear that it was supposed to be a witnessing of the execution. Since Nebraska voters said the state is allowed to kill somebody, then the state has the grave responsibility witnessing it properly. She said the human being it is about to kill mainly. Pansy Brooks introduced 30 and a resolution. Other proposals introduced introduction included, next one, go ahead.
Okay. From Iowa City, elections official acknowledged Monday that his office mistakenly derailed a law to grant residents more expansive gun rights by forgetting to notify the proposed constitutional amendment. Secretary of State Paul and a bureaucratic office's failure to publish notice of the proposed amendment in newspaper November election as required Constitution. The supporters probably will have to restart the for amending the state constitution, and that the earliest the measure could be voted on in the statewide referendum would be 2022 instead of 2020. The plan most likely would be blocked if Democrats gain control of either for them. Supporters reacted with fury to a lifetime member of the National who supported the proposed amendment. They said they would review any legal options for seeker, but acknowledged that they'd start again from scratch. The amendment has been a priority for over a decade, and now, yes, monumental setback, can try, said State Representative, a Republican sponsor of the proposed proposed amendment, that his initial reaction to the oversight wouldn't be publishable. The Republican-controlled General Assembly voted last spring to approve a state constitution to declare that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Any restrictions on that right to be subject to strict scrutiny, a stringent standard. Supporters say the language is necessary for gun owners from restrictions or federal lawmakers. Of the few major pieces of gun rights by states last year after the mass shooting at a school in Parkland, Florida, calls for stricter gun controls. Critics warned that the Iowa future gun, possibly current restrictions, would be blocked in court. Iowa constitutional amendments must be approved in 2 consecutive legislative sessions by a majority of voters. Amendment supporters had been planning to approve the session so that it could be on the 2020 ballot. But the Constitution also would be published for 3 consecutive months before the election, and who represents them during the session. That's the Secretary of State. Pate appointed to publish notice of the gun resolution, and another lieutenant governor is in office. I accept full responsibility for this oversight and offer my sincerest apology to the legislatures and supporters who, as Pate said, there is no, I am instituting a system that will ensure like this never happens again. Pate of the Iowa Firearms Coalition for the amendment during 2017. Be right there with you, making sure they heard. The ability to hunt and shoot with his grandchildren. I'm going to let anybody, if I have anything to say about it, me. The group backed Pate in its 20 voter guide, giving him an A grade. He won re-election by defeating Democrat Deidre Jeter. Iowa President Kurt Liskey that they had been wronged by Pate after working to pass the amendment. Knowing all of that has been undone due to a technicality. Elected officials' failure to act responsibility. I'm sure this, but he said he took it for granted, given Pate's support.
Proposals that were introduced on the third day of the legislature. Well, Senator Joni Albrecht of Thurston sponsored Let's LB of the Nebraska National Guard. Omaha Senate introduced prohibiting visitors and any other mobile device into a confiscated items would be turned over to the Nebraska state. A bill 5-2 by Lincoln Senator Suzanne Geis require all lotteries to disclose the odds of winning the largest prize in a clear and conspicuous manner in text than 35% of the large used in the advertisement. The point Penn District Citizenry Bill LB 253 from John McCollister, made up of each is legislation with no more than 3 in the same political party, as well as a chairperson who is not affiliated with any political party. Met plans for the redistricting of legislative and convening 2021. And finally, Steve Halloran introduced a resolution calling for a convention under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, proposing that impose fiscal resource government, limit restriction, and create term limits.
Things done from Kearney into the Central Nebraska Veterans Home in Kearney this week. So the Nebraska Patriots residents will move from the Grand Island in groups of 3 buses or vans starting at 8:30 a.m. Wednesday, said Holden Armstrong's director for the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs. Scheduled people moving into the Kearney home. Armstrong 225 moving buses will be on hand to help them to their neighborhoods and rooms. Sub-dignitaries will be on it. It will be a little hectic for the members, and we don't want to bombard them with too much, Armstrong said. 89 million kept at least 4 years of planning. In December 2014, would be the site for the new veterans home. In 2015, the U.S. Department of Veterans partial funding for the facility, with contributions from the state of Nebraska, Buffalo Economic Development Council of Buffalo, was broken at the 67-acre site in held in teen. So Veterans Home visited the facility, its construction.
Hey. Will requiring developers to put in more tree space and parking lots be good for older neighborhoods? A deterrent to redevelopment? It's on whose end. City planners say it's requiring more trees between the street and parking lots and trees, large parking lots for both businesses and apartment complexes, linking a more attractive community, the kind that draws young workers. Space and tree already provided by developers at the city make older neighborhoods better. Christopher, a city planner, bring rules at Monday's city council meeting. But local developers say the proposal hurt older neighborhoods, inhibiting redevelopments or lots because most likely to be located in older areas. The new screening requirement for reduce the amount of land used for the development movement is aimed to deter developed neighborhoods, said Ann Post, an attorney representing a large liberty owner and developer. Smaller lot, every square foot is critical. Don't have to meet the Mondays. Looked at proposed rules that for parking lots and for parking lot additions have modified after developers raised the city county planning. But developers are still concerned about the effect of more green space, particularly smaller or shallow lots than 100 inches deep. Currently, those shallow lots are exempted, and Screenway Motors and a spokesman for the Lincoln Association, two schools, moved from the regulations. One for the shallow lots, 6-foot screening between parking lots that are not 5. Developers would really like to see the most into continued redevelopment is attorney for development. Rules we have unintended for older neighborhoods, said Dustin Antonello, Councilman John, that creating islands of trees in the middle of large parking lots as proposal makes snow removal more difficult and more expensive. The green space and trees provide environmental benefits, soften the look of business area, community a competitive edge. About 25% of the developers already provide the rules required 20% of the requirements, and about 25% try to do area planning director. We need to level the mayor that additional green space, not just new areas where development but already standards. Those are waivers negotiated with allows developers to appeal council. Councilman Roy Christensen asked what the increased cost might be additional to report. Raising housing development costs are more expensive and means housing, he said. Developers and planners are safe at the city's edge, apartment complex likely to be built, but notably Christensen's cost.
From Des Moines, control the Iowa legislature vowed Monday to continue building tax pendant changes they say voters had in mind when both parties pledged bipartisan. The legislative session opened, but largely laid out priorities unlikely to foster much agreement. Be dedicated to our pro-growth agenda for Iowa, growth for our schools, for areas. Republican Senate Majority Leader Jack Whitver, Republican Senator Charles, time to operate partisanship. The time is over, he said. The time arrived. Senator Janet Peterson called on the legislature for voting rights for felony registration in Iowa. We should be doing all we can to make voting state in the nation to go along the first funding for job training programs and apprenticeships, get better jobs, and said it's time to raise the minimum wage. To seek honest answers and accountability from the privatized Medicaid program, revised statute of limitation laws of serial predators ahead of fully expansion. Republicans to Upmeyer's want to accept not go back to the old Medicaid system and improve it as it manages that more have used to improve health outcomes, create stability, and ensure sustainability of the program. There is no reason that we can't be successful as well. She's on mental health care for children, which the governor plans to detail on the state address. House Majority Leader Chris Hagenow said balancing employers in Iowa find enough skilled workers, top for gun owners, and the fight to protect unborn life remain important. For the Democrats, House Minority Leader Todd Pritchard said too long have ignored the challenges Iowa families face to expand access to health, whether they are urban or rural. We will work to expand educational opportunities and job training for all Iowans, whether they are in the K-12 system, community college, or advanced programs, he said.
Update we have a large number of death notices to date. The fifth Lincoln man got what his attorney described as a likely life for making pornography involving 3 young girls. The case did not involve Chief Judge Randall's case. The comments, the pain inflicted girls, both short would have made 12 citizens literally use the connection as part of the news of the vendors. We're going to start a little bit early, and with our first is 380 Goner, Goehner, family for future funeral arrangements entrusted to Zahu Seward, Nebraska. Deke, Virgil 6, died January 12th. More and follow. Dorn, Virgil W. Dorn, age 76. The family Fox Funeral Home of Beatrice is handling arrangements. Maurice L. Hafer of Geneva, memorials to Ohio, the Methodist Church, Fairview Manor. Farmer and Son Funeral Home in Geneva arrangements. Jepson Lawrence Jepson was 77. Kearney. Family will be held Saturday. Suggested to Furman Paladin Club at Furman in Greenville, South Carolina, or the Lymphoma Society, or the Kearney Area Community Foundation. If you have, you can contact E. McBride and Cool Cremation Services in Kearney. Johnson, age 70. More information, I'm sure, will follow. Kowalski, age 9. Memorials, Suggested Kidney Foundation, or Redeemer Lutheran Church. We'll be at the Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home on Thursday. Loken, Ronald Leroy Loken, a Memorial Humane Society. It says Ron's life will be celebrated at 11 a.m. on Thursday at First Plymouth Congressional Church. Gwist, Cheryl, I suppose, Sherry Quist was 82. Attendants are at number 2, suggested to Heritage Press. Home has been Reese, Keith Dwayne Reese, to the Mission Creek Cemetery. 11 a.m., January 16th at Barnston American Legion in Barnston. No funeral home. Scheffler, Gerald L. Scheffler, age 62. No other information except date of death, which was January 11th. Sipp, Alma F. Sipp, S-I-P-P, age 90, of Beatrice. Harmon Wright Mortuary in Beatrice is handling the arrangements. Utermohlen, Utermohlen. Charles Robert, or Bob Utermohlen, age 91. Memorials, Pearl and Paul Feiselman Fund at Peru State College. No funeral home has been provided. And the last notice in today's Journal Star is for Witulski, Dean D. Witulski, age 82, of Denton. Memorials to the Nebraska Organ Retrieval, Lincoln Blood Bank, or Food Bank of Lincoln. Services entrusted to Roper and Sons Funeral Services. And those are today's notices, Deb, in the Lincoln Journal Star.
Thanks. We'll turn to those now. Obituaries and funeral arrangements in the Omaha World Herald. The first is Balkus. Dorothy L. Balkus, 90 years old. There will be a funeral Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Carisco Larkin Staskowitz Funeral Home on F Street. Next, Barclay, Dolores I. Barclay, known as D, 87. Funeral service will be Thursday at 10 at St. Patrick's Catholic Church, 508 Angus Street in Gretna. These wishes were in lieu of flowers, memorials to the Gretna Public Library or the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Rhoda Mortuary, the Gretna Chapel, is in charge of arrangements. Bernard, Jane S. Bernard, 82. A more complete notice will follow from John A. Gentleman. Borowski, Lisa M. Borowski, 36. There will be a gathering of family and friends on Thursday the 17th from 5 to 7 at the Brayman Mortuary, the 72nd Street Chapel. Memorials are asked to the Nebraska Humane Society. Brown, Rosemary A. Brown, 93. The funeral mass will be Thursday the 17th at 11 a.m. at Holy Name Catholic Church on Fontenelle Boulevard. Brayman Mortuary is in charge of arrangements. Carlentine, Charles Carlentine Jr., 60. There will be services at 1 p.m. Thursday the 17th at Forest Lawn. And Forest Lawn Funeral Home is in charge of arrangements. Chiloha, Edward Lee Chiloha, Cheloha, 78 years old. The visitation will be Thursday the 17th from 10 to 11 with a rosary at 11 at the West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home on 57th and Center. Chevalier Dwayne P. Chevalier, 79, of Council Bluffs. Mr. Chevalier was a veteran. The massive Christian burial will be Thursday at 11 a.m. at St. Patrick's Catholic Church, and he will be buried at St. Anne Cemetery in Campbell, Nebraska. Memorials to St. Patrick's Catholic Church or St. Albert Schools. Cutler O'Neill Meyer Woodring is in charge of arrangements. The Bayless Park Chapel. DeStefano, Jewel R. DeStefano, known as Judy, 93 years old. The massive Christian burial will be Friday, January 18th at 10 a.m. at St. Barbara Bellarmine Catholic Church, and a more complete notice will follow from Heafy Hoffman to Art Cutler. Divis, Kenneth D. Divis, D-I-V-I-S, 82. A more complete notice will follow from Heafy Hoffman to Art Cutler. Gardner, Kenneth A. Gardner, 69. The memorial service will be Wednesday at 11 a.m. at the Cutler O'Neill Meyer Woodring Funeral Home, the Bayless Park Chapel, 11 o'clock. Haas, H-A-A-S-E, Dorothy M. Haas, 84. Services will be held at a later date. West Lawn Hillcrest is in charge of arrangements. Hanson, Viola J. Hanson of Elkhorn, 88 years old. The funeral will be Wednesday at 2. Visitation will be Wednesday from 1 to 2, and the funeral following immediately at the Reichmuth Funeral Home on West Maple Street. Memorials are asked to the Nebraska Humane Society. Hicks, Virgil Wayne Hicks, 56. There will be visitation from 4 to 7 on Wednesday the 16th at the Bellevue Memorial Chapel, but the services will be private. The Bellevue Memorial Chapel is a branch of Heafy Hoffman Door Cutler. Hiras, Denise Hiras, H-I-R-O-S-S, 80 years old. There will be private family services that will be provided by Bellevue Memorial Chapel, Heafy Hoffman Door Cutler. Hoffman, Thomas J. Hoffman, 56. There will be a memorial service Thursday at 10:30 at St. Pius X Church. And the memorial visitation will be Wednesday starting at 5 with a wake at 7 at the John A. Gentleman 72nd Street Chapel. Memorials to the family for future designation. Hunt, 83. There will be a gathering of family and friends Wednesday the 16th from 5 to 6 with a memorial service at 6. It doesn't say where the gathering is, but we'll assume that it's at Roeder Mortuary. They're in charge of arrangements on North 108th Street, and the memorials are asked to the Alzheimer's Association. You might want to call Roeder to be certain. Hussey, Douglas D. Hussey, 86 years old, of Ida Grove, Iowa. He was a veteran, Mr. Hussey was, and the funeral service Thursday the 17th at the Christensen Van Houten Funeral Home of Ida Grove, Iowa. Visitation will be held 1 hour prior to the service. Jackson, Jeffrey E. Jackson, 68. The funeral service will be Friday the 18th at noon at the West Center Chapel of Heafy Hoffman Door Cutler, followed by a celebration of his life at the Tangier Shrine Center. Memorials are suggested to Tangier Shriners, Tangier Transportation Fund, Shriners Hospitals for Children, or the Quetzalcoatl. Heafy Hoffman Door Cutler. Jeck, Audrey L. Jeck, 91. The massive Christian burial will be Wednesday at 11 a.m. at St. Bernadette's Catholic Church on South 42nd Street. Memorials are requested to the Omaha Association for the Deaf. Crisco Larkin Staskowitz is in charge of arrangements. Jennings, Tina M. Jennings, 56. The funeral service will be 11 a.m. at the Thomas Funeral Home on North 24th Street. Jensen, Kathy L. Jensen, 69, of Plattsmouth. The funeral service will be Thursday at 1 p.m. Home Chapel in Plattsmouth. Jensen, Leo R. Jensen, 61. The memorial service will be Thursday the 17th at 11 a.m. at the West Center Chapel of Hefe Hoffman Cutler. Memorials will be directed by the family. Kellogg, Pauline J. 6, 1 p.m. Friday the 18th at Forest Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery on the Mormon Bridge Road are in charge of arrangements. Patrick Cragen Krell, 87. A mass will be held in his honor on Thursday the 17th at 10:30 at St. Margaret Mary's Church. A reception will follow immediately thereafter. Croon, Wesley G. Croon, 62. There will be a massive Christian burial Thursday at 10 a.m. at St. Stephen the Martyr, 67th and S Street. Crosby Burkett Swanson is in charge of arrangements. Langle, Darlene P. Zolke Langle, 87. The funeral will be Thursday at 11 a.m. at the Corisco Larkin Staskowitz Mortuary. Memorials to the family for a charity of their choice. Maine, Virginia L. Maine, 62. Celebration of Virginia's life will be Thursday the 17th at 11 a.m. at Covenant Presbyterian Church, 150th and Blondo. In lieu of flowers and memorials are asked to the Nebraska Humane Society. The Southwest Chapel is in charge of arrangements. McWilliams, Lonnie W. McWilliams, 78. There will be a memorial Wednesday the 16th at 5 p.m. at the Camelot Community Center. Nilges, Trudy K. Nilges, Nilges, age 68 of Blair. The memorial service will be Wednesday the 16th at 11 a.m. at the Christ Lutheran Church in Wisner, Nebraska. In lieu of flowers directed to the family, Minnick Funeral Home in West Point, Nebraska is in charge of arrangements. Peterson, Margaret Peterson, known as Jane of Louisville, Nebraska. The funeral service will be Friday the 18th at 11 a.m. at First United Methodist Church on Walnut Street in Louisville. Family suggests memorials to the family for later designation. Fusselman Allen Harvey Funeral Home in Louisville is in charge of arrangements. Stuck, Mary Stuck, age 92, formerly of Auburn. The memorial service will be Wednesday the 16th at the Hemmingson Funeral Home in Auburn. Memorials to the Auburn Rescue Squad, Hemmingson Funeral Home in Auburn. Swanson, Margaret M. Swanson, 69 years old. The massive Christian burial will be Tuesday, January 15th at 11:15 at St. Cecilia Cathedral, 701 North 40th. Hefe Hoffman Cutler. Thompson, Helen P. Heavey Thompson, 101 years old. The massive Christian burial will be Tuesday at 11 a.m. at St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church. Hefe Hoffman Cutler, the West Center Chapel, is in charge of arrangements. Vogel, Jerry R. Vogel. The funeral service will be Friday the 18th at 11 a.m. at the John A. Gentleman Mortuary on 72nd Street. The family will direct memorials. Watkins, George D. Watkins. Mr. Watkins, he was 76 years old. He was a veteran. The services will be Wednesday the 16th at 9 a.m. at Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church, 7706 South 96th in La Vista. The Wednesday at 11 at the Omaha National Cemetery with military honors provided by the American Legion Post Number 1. Memorials to M.D. Anderson Cancer Center, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, or Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church. Hefe Hoffman Cutler, the West Center Chapel, is in charge of arrangements. Weber, Delbert D. Weber, Del Weber, 86 years old. Mr. Weber was a veteran, and he also was a longtime chancellor of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. The services will be Thursday at 11 a.m. at Kuntz Memorial Lutheran Church, 26th and Farnham. In lieu of flowers, memorials are asked to Kuntz Memorial Lutheran Church. Hefe Hoffman Cutler, the West Center Chapel, is in charge of arrangements. Wistrom, 79. There will be services Wednesday at noon at the West Center Chapel of Hefe Hoffman Cutler. Memorials are asked to West Hills Church. And finally, Wolf, Robert J. Wolf, 68, a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, clearly a veteran. The visitation will be Wednesday, January the 16th, beginning at 10:30 a.m. by the West Center Chapel of Hefe Hoffman Cutler. Wait a minute. Visitation Wednesday the 16th beginning at 10:30, and then services at 11:30 a.m. I'm sorry to be so confusing. Visitation at 10:30, services at 11:30 at the West Center Chapel of Heaphy, Hoffman, Dwight, Cutler. And those are all of the obituaries in the Omaha World Herald for today.
Thanks, Deb. There is one person passing to note, and I'm sure there'll be more in tomorrow's paper if you haven't heard, but Carol Channing passed away this morning, apparently. Carol Channing was 97, I think they said on public radio, and she was, of course, the original Hello, Dolly, and among other roles, very charming and much beloved Broadway and movie actress Carol Channing, 97 years old. Well, it's just about, we're under a minute before our usual break time of an 11. So we are going to take our mid-presentation break, but we're also going to remind everyone that listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and go a long way to keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as Donor's Choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book listener and supporter.
Thank you very much, Don Van. All right, my friends, as he said, it's time for our mid-show break. And I was just telling one of our volunteers, Marilee Kelly, that she kind of reminds me a little bit of Carol Channing. So she took it as a compliment, as she should have. So Talking Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska. We've been proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for 44 years. Radio Talking Book is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS-FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. We want to thank all of you for being loyal Radio Talking Book listeners and supporters. Well, I know you're used to hearing Jay Nielsen do the menus, but she is recovering from a cold. Her voice isn't quite up to snuff, so I'm carrying the ball this week. First of all, you remember the mystery dish yesterday, cowboy caviar? Well, I Googled it and researched it, and the answer, what is caviar? What is cowboy caviar? The answer is, I have no idea. All I can tell you, folks, is it has black beans and tomatoes in it. I couldn't get a sense of what it was based on the ingredients. So let's turn to today's senior lunch menus. Today's menus include a breaded chicken patty on a whole grain hamburger bun with lettuce and tomato. Sounds yummy. Twice baked whipped potatoes, mixed vegetables, cherry vanilla yogurt, and 1% milk. So that is today's senior lunch menus, brought to you by the Eastern Office on Aging here in Nebraska. All right, let's do a public service announcement, my friends, before we go back to Studio A. Here is Becca Jury.
Join us for Classic Movie Night at Outlook, Nebraska. Saturday, January 19th at 7 p.m. We will be offering Jurassic Park with live audio description.
They have one in
Steven
there today.
Spielberg's massive blockbuster,
Post?
two paleontologists and another island theme park
Don't you have any quotes?
populated by
I got a
the
couple, but they're
dinosaurs
so
created from
bad.
prehistoric DNA. While the park's mastermind assures everyone
that's-
safe, they find out otherwise
Oh, I
when
forgot to
ferocious
bring my
predators break free and go on the hunt. This event is free and no registration is
Bill
required.
bought me these to include in my lunch when he was afraid I was going to quit my job.
And
He
there are
wanted me to keep
snacks and
going.
soda
Got me
available to
some raisins
purchase.
for my
How
lunch.
is that going this
Doors
year?
open
Fine.
at 6:30
Fine.
p.m.
How
You
often do
can
you
set
work?
your mobile
Just
pickup for
Thursday.
10 p.m.
Oh,
More
man.
information, Megan,
Could be called in
at
from Bellevue, but I don't go.
531-365-5335.
I'm too busy.
Good.
The reading of the Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal
I was the hero this
are
week.
brought to you today by
I mean, last
Wellcare
week,
Health Plans.
because I guard the hall when the kids come in,
Exclusively
watch them changes and stuff.
managed care services,
And it went kind of long, and so some of them were in there already.
Medicare prescription drug
I got in there and they were all
families,
standing
children, and
around
seniors
one
in
kid.
Nebraska.
And
For more
they
about
looked at me and said,
healthcare,
"How's your
call
French?"
today
And I said,
at
"Bon." And they said,
1-888
"Great." They were
255
amazed that I could read French.
2605.
And this kid was so-
www.wellcare.com/Nebraska.
Thank you very much, Michael. All right, let's return to Studio A for the second hour of the live reading of the Lincoln Journal-Star Omaha World Herald. Once again, coming to the microphones, our Tuesday morning stars. Once again, here is Deb 80 and Don Van. Go ahead, folks.
Well, I guess if you're going to a dinner party and the dinner is cowboy caviar, maybe you better have a second thought about it. Well, it's now time for our editorials, or as we start with the letters to the editor. There's two in the Lincoln Journal-Star, and the first from Bryce Johnson from Lincoln, and Bryce writes, "Let us recognize that the government shutdown is not about a wall. The root cause is a dysfunctional Congress and its inability to pass a balanced budget. The true crisis is deficit spending, which is leveraged toward political distraction to keep us arguing with them about the Affordable Care Act in the previous administration and now border security. This cycle will continue, leading to other extreme proposals: the Green New Deal, the plan to upgrade every industrial building for state-of-the-art energy efficiency, comfort, and safety, would generate more greenhouse gas emissions than it eliminates. If administered by the federal government, it would decimate our economy and drive the most vulnerable Americans into poverty. A broken system cannot self-repair without outside influence. Our votes may have been sufficient in the past, but no tyranny will restrain itself. We may be approved, but there is still time, and I have hope. More fiscal conservatives should speak up to promote federalism. More truly liberal, independent, and third-party candidates should step up with divergent thinking key to the advancement of a free society. And I hope to see passage of an Article 5 call for a convention of states to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and for members of Congress. Let us rise above the distraction part and focus together on the real problems and appropriate solutions." Bryce Johnson from Lincoln. Evan from Columbus writes, "According to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, borders are immoral. Does this mean that she is advocating for the miles of strategic walls across the southern border that have been in place for decades to now be torn down?" That's the two letters in today's Journal-Star, Deb.
All right, there are a few, of course, letters in the Public Pulse today in the Omaha World Herald. This first one is from Bruce Lundak, MD of Omaha. "I have been a physician in private practice in Omaha since 1999. I and my partners have remained independent and have previously held privileges at facilities within most of the healthcare systems in Omaha and Southwest Iowa. It is my experience that employed and independent physicians are generally willing and happy to work side by side with each other. We often work in collaboration and/or healthy competition with a common goal of providing excellent care to our patients. This dynamic encourages us to inspire each other by example and to learn from each other. I believe that the resentment independent physicians feel is directed not toward employed physicians, but toward the health system administrations that seek to have a closed system, which allows only their employed physicians to practice in their system and hospitals to the exclusion of the private practice physicians. Some healthcare systems strongly encourage, if not mandate, that employed physicians refer patients exclusively to other employed physicians. This institutional hubris short circuits collaboration among physicians and disrupts referral patterns and lines of communication that have been greatly beneficial to patient care. It has led to the dissolution of the medical practices of many talented physicians in Omaha. The divisiveness fomented among physicians and the disruption of excellent patient care that can result from this exclusivity is playing itself out on the pages of the World Herald. Healthcare is healthier when employed and independent physicians are encouraged to work amongst each other. Again, that was from Dr. Bruce Lundak of Omaha. From Dave Riebel of Omaha, there is a lesson to be gleaned from the disaster that is the Omaha Public Schools Pension Fund. I commend the very well-researched article on the topic. In the private sector, pensions are required to be audited annually, and shortfalls, should one occur, be made up out of company revenues. In the public sector, there are no earnings, and the shortfall is made up, as in the case with OPS pension, coming from taxpayer pockets, either in the form of higher expenditures or a lowering of services. The lesson here, in my opinion, is one the private sector has largely learned already. Defined benefit pension programs are a thing of the past and should be replaced with defined contribution retirement programs, such as IRAs and 401ks. I am a small business owner. I provide a 401k for my employees that they contribute pre-tax money into, and I, as the employer, match a portion of these savings. The employee is responsible for where these investments are placed and therefore responsible for decisions. This may sound risky, but it really isn't. We also provide world-class investment advice from a certified investor to assist in these investment decisions. OPS is not the only public institution that has been plagued by problems with its pensions. I would support a law banning government-run defined benefit pensions. This is from Dave Riebel of Omaha. From Carol Sanderhoff of Omaha, the January 13 article about the Omaha Public Schools Pension Fund, called Odd Choices Set Stage for a Spiral of Losses, was interesting, aggravating, and frightening. I'm one of those people who depends on the OPS pension along with my Social Security income to pay my monthly expenses. Without both incomes, I could not manage, and I live and spend carefully. I sincerely hope this mess gets resolved. I very much appreciate all the work you folks at the World Herald do to keep us well informed. Again, Carol Sanderhoff of Omaha. From Mark Nekonchuk, Nekonchuk of Omaha. With all the comments coming out of meetings between the Democrats and Republicans over the security at our southern border being in total contradiction, there need to be cameras. The truth of what happens in those meetings needs to be revealed to the American people. Stop letting the politicians who lie get away with it. Mark Nekonchuk of Omaha. From Gary Williams of Omaha. I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Del Weber on a variety of occasions when I served on the Omaha Public Power District's Corporate Communications Division, and he served as a member of OPPD's Board of Directors. He was brilliant, kind, energetic, conscientious, committed, honest, a role model and a true class act. In everything he did, he served with grace and distinction, and he set an example all of us would do well to emulate. It was a pleasure to have known him, even just a little, and our community is much better for having had him as a member. Rest in peace, Dr. Weber. That was from Gary Williams of Omaha. Kelly from Cincinnati, a retired World Herald columnist. I enjoyed Rick Ruddle's front page article and the follow-up World Herald editorial extolling Del Weber, retired Chancellor of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. In many ways, UNO improved and began to expand during his 2 decades at the helm, and he continued his community leadership in the years since. I got to reminisce with Dundee Dell and Lou Ann at a wonderful visit in their home a few weeks ago. That nickname resulted from UNO's proximity to the Dundee Dell, a popular neighborhood restaurant and lounge known for its fish and chips. The moniker always has been so approachable, modest, and down to earth. When I asked the esteemed former university leader if he ever minded that nickname, he chuckled and he said he considered it an honor. Naturally. That was from Michael Kelly, a retired World Herald columnist, who now apparently lives in Cincinnati. Letter in the public. Tom Dahulick, Dahulick of Omaha. Memo to our Nebraska legislature. As reported in the Wall Street Journal and the Omaha World Herald, accidents have been rising in the states that have legalized marijuana.
Okay, thanks, Deb. Well, there is one quote, which is kind of interesting, I think. It's from Lincoln Police Chief Jeff Blymeister, and it refers to the city's crime 2018 statistics, which saw decreases in overall and violent crime rates, even as felony arrests rose. The quote, "Although crime is down, the demand on our workforce is not." Deb?
Well, thanks.
That's about it over here.
There is an opinion from the World Herald, and the title of it is "Equal Rights Are for All." The nation states in an amendment voters passed overwhelmingly in 1998, all men and women are by nature free and equal and have certain innate, among which are those of enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety and happiness. That language doesn't say these constitutional rights extend to white people only. It doesn't say that non-white people should be considered second or third class citizens. The language doesn't even mention race or ethnicity, and for a very good reason. Under our Constitution, state and national, America isn't a caste society with rights limited only to a select group. The rights to free speech, to assembly, to happiness are to extend to all. To claim that white people are inherently superior to or deserve higher respect than anyone else crosses a fundamental line of decency and responsible thought. United States Representative Steve King, a Republican representing Iowa's 4th District, shamefully crossed that line last week in an interview with the New York Times. Here's the quote, "White nationalist, white supremacist, Western civilization, how did that language become offensive?" That's the end of the quote. "We live in an era where social media embolden racial fringe groups to proclaim their hate. It's imperative that our elected leaders be stalwart in speaking out against race-based resentments and refrain from stoking them. We reiterate our statement made in a 2017 World Herald editorial. King needs to rethink the divisive views he endorses online and in the real world. He should be serving his Northwest Iowa constituents, not embarrassing them. America draws strength from its diversity." King issued a subsequent, "I reject white nationalism. I reject white supremacy. It's not part of any of my ideology." Members of Congress have responded with appropriate derision to King's original statement. "I condemn Representative Steve King's comments on white supremacy," said U.S. Senator Joni Ernst, Iowa's junior senator. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, said Monday, "I have no tolerance for such positions, and those who espouse these views are not supporters of American ideals and freedoms. If he doesn't understand why white supremacy is offensive, he should find another line of work." House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a Republican from California, stated, "Everything about white supremacy and white nationalism goes against who we are as a nation. Steve's language is reckless, wrong, and has no place in our society." McCarthy said action will be taken in the House against King. Next week, our country will pause to remember the words of another King, Martin Luther King Jr. It will be a moment to honor his legacy and appreciate our country's abiding obligation to safeguard equal rights for and extend equal respect to all Americans. During the upheavals of the civil rights era, Martin Luther King Jr. taught the need for fellowship across lines of race and background. "We must live together as brothers or perish together as fools," he said. That is a principle true to the highest American spirit, a principle our leaders, including in the Iowa's 4th District, should be stalwart in defending.
Thanks, Deb. Well, it's 17 minutes after the hour, and it's probably time to move on to today's living entertainment sections of the both papers. This article from the Journal Star is entitled "Older and Wiser." Lincoln author Mary Pfeiffer says ageism is a bigger problem for women than aging. Column by Cindy Lang Kubik. Mary Pfeiffer's voice is a bit hoarse Monday morning. It's less than 24 hours before her latest book, Women Rowing North, Navigating Life's Currents and Flourishing as We Age hits the shelves, and a day after, the New York Times op-ed on the subject became the paper's #1 trending story. Stuff is just blowing up on me, she says. I'm really kind of stunned. Last week, Pfeiffer talked to the Wall Street Journal about her 10th book, and a few days before that, she was interviewed by AI, a DC area radio program distributed by NPR. It's not broadcast locally, but popular all over the East Coast. Her segment, the host told her, was particularly popular. They said they haven't had that kind of response to a show for a really long time. And with the book out Tuesday, more media requests, like mine, are coming the Lincoln author's way. Besides, her brother and his partner spent the weekend at the house she shares with her husband, Jim, so her voice is getting a workout. She's happy about it all. She's happy she's 71, which is what the book is all about. In America is a bigger problem for women than aging, she wrote for the Times. Our bodies and our sexuality are devalued. We are denigrated by mother-in-law jokes and were rendered invisible in the media. Yet, most of the women I know describe themselves as being in a vibrant and happy life stage. I haven't quite hit the demographic for Pfeiffer's book, but 18 months from starting my next decade, the opening chapters resonate. Page 29. As we age, we also experience role reversals that can feel disempowering. Younger people have the prestige and prominence. Our supervisors, doctors, and attorneys are sometimes decades younger. On page 31, many older women report that as they shop, work, volunteer, or exercise, they are simply not noticed by younger people. Page 35. We can claim our power and secure respect for older women. Resolve not to criticize ourselves or make negative remarks about age or appearance. Now, the book is full of insights that hit home for women like me and apparently for plenty of others. Sunday, Pfeiffer's inbox filled with emails from Times readers, from women in their 90s and women in their 30s, from more than a few men, and from Pfeiffer's baby boomer peers, too. I had a kind of target audience in mind and was surprised that the reaction was kind of broad, Pfeiffer said. Pfeiffer is best known for the best-selling Reviving Ophelia, published in 1996. She's written about refugees and eating disorders, about peace and community building and culture. This book, like most by the now retired psychologist, own experience and subjects that sparked her curiosity to know more. It started with her hand, she said. Worn out after decades of work, from delivering heavy trays of A&W root beer to cars as a teenager, to years of scribbling notes in college and grad school, to writing her patient notes as a therapist, to the longhand writing of all. Her thumb joints were wore out. She developed nerve damage, carpal tunnel, had multiple surgeries. Her physical therapist told her she shouldn't be writing at all. I was in the doldrums, Pfeiffer says. One day, it was snowing and my hands were not getting any better. She decided to ignore her therapist's advice and write in her journal anyway. She liked what came out and thought maybe she'd expand it into an essay someday. When she went to look for a file folder, she came across an old file with the title "Books" taped to the front. Mary Pfeiffer, Writing to Change the World. I got angry and took a red marker. Mary Pfeiffer, not writing to change the world. Then she started to laugh. She had her first glimpse of a book, the idea of getting older and coming to grips with things, trying to have a resilient response. As she continued to write and to talk to women, she realized people her age need to do that all the time, often through the loss of spouses and friends, physical abilities, and more. We all keep appointments we do not make, she says. Happiness is still a choice. It's not genetics. It's not our external circumstances. She interviewed women in Lincoln and beyond, telling the stories of how they paddle through the challenges of aging and also how they find the joys. I tried to find women who had something to teach, she says. Women Rowing North is not a how-to book, she says. It's an honest book. You can feel both lucky and unlucky, grumpy and not grateful and unwilling. The opposite is also true, she says, and it is what she found in the stories women told and in her own story of aging in America. Contentment, possibilities, growth. What I'm trying to do is cultural education. Your happiness as you age does not lie in trying to stay beautiful or deciding you're going to buy a second home, but in what you have internally or the relationships you have in the world. Pfeiffer will begin her book in Lincoln at East Ridge Presbyterian Church. She'll head to California next week and then back to Colorado and on to D.C., where she'll give a reading at Politics and Prose on Connecticut Avenue before returning to a last signing in Lincoln in the spring. And right now, in the buzz of the moment, Pfeiffer is getting plenty of offers to expand her tour, all of which she is politely declining. I don't want to schlep around in hotels anymore at my age, the author says. One of the gifts of this last stage is I know who I am and I know what I want, and that's not it. Interesting.
Thank you.
Sounds like a good book.
No. Well, I will just look in the World Herald and read the advice from Amy Dickinson. Dear Amy, I have a problem with my brother's wife. She has always been rude to me, my siblings, and our parents. I have never tolerated her rudeness, so she usually just avoids me. The other day, she said something very nasty to me. I very calmly and firmly told her to speak to me like that. She got angry, but seemed to get over it quickly. When she and my brother prepared to leave, she came over to me and threatened to break every bone in my body if I ever spoke to her like that again. I was shocked. She stormed out of the house before I could respond. She has crossed the line. I will not tolerate threats and bullying. I talked to my siblings about it, and they all agree that I should say something. But they said that they will not take sides because they want to keep the peace. I was hoping we could all come together and let her know that we won't tolerate her rudeness and bullying, but it looks like I'm on my own. Amy, how should I handle this? Should I speak directly to her about it, or should I speak to my brother? I'm not even sure what to say. I'm very bad at confrontation. Signed, Won't Be Bullied. Dear Won't Be Bullied, tossing a threat grenade and then fleeing the scene is really an offensive and cowardly version of having the last word. There are many ways to stand up to a bully. One way is to understand actually a pathetic gasp. You could feel sorry for her because she can't control her emotions or anger, and sorry for your brother who has chosen to live with her. Feeling compassion and continuing to be vigilant, calm, and responsive in the moment is one path to take. If you respond to your sister-in-law's statement after the fact, understand that she will find a way to up the ante and stir up more drama. Keep your statements simple, calm, and natural consequences of her actions. I was completely shocked when you used with physical violence. I can tell that you are very upset because I've decided not to tolerate your bad treatment. I understand that there are times when we will be in the same space. Keeping our distance works for me. But I'm letting you know that if you ever do that again, I'll take your threat very seriously. Dear Amy, please settle a debate in our family. My mother states that proper etiquette dictates that while dining in gruans or at home, it is rude to remove the finish person until all diners have finished eating. She thinks that doing so makes those still eating feel rushed or as if they should not still be eating. While I understand her point, I say this is a quirk of hers and not an etiquette standard. What say you, inquiring daughter? They're inquiring. Your mother's point is directed solely toward the guest's feelings and comfort. You say you understand her reasoning. So if she is being kind, thoughtful, and hospitable, and you see the legitimacy of her point, debatable. The entire purpose of etiquette is not to start or settle, but to create guidelines that will always support politeness and kindness. As it happens, your mother is also correct about this long-standing dining standard. Slowing things down is good for everyone. Instead of racing to clear plates as people finish their entree, offer members of the Clean Plate Club another round of wine or sparkling water. The following directive is from etiquettescholar.com. At a small dinner party, plates are cleared after the last guest is. For expedite service, plates are cleared as soon as guests are finished. In the last letter, dear Amy, so many questions, doubted her brother's Native American ancestry because DNA testing did not turn up any native DNA. This could be because the DNA databases currently don't have enough Native American DNA to provide matches. Also proudly part Native. Dear Proudly, many people pointed this out. Thank you all. I should have done more homework. According to one DNA matching site, most of the native DNA currently in their database so far is coming from the southern hemisphere, so that people can explore their native DNA roots.
I didn't know that. Well, let's go on to Barton Goldsmith, his column on interpersonal wellness, I guess we could call it, and your surroundings. Well, Barton writes, my wife comes from a foreign land and she is still experiencing new and different things. Whenever she finds something she loves, today it was cornbread, she says, God bless America. And we all laugh. Just the thought about what life would be like without cornbread makes me appreciate it more. Seeing it through her eyes makes me appreciate it more too. When we get to re-experience things for the first time, it shines a brighter light on what we have come to know. She doesn't like the strawberries here. The ones where she comes from are much better, she says. Now, I know a good strawberry from a bad one because we kind of live in strawberry country, and I've been a consumer since childhood. But I'll have to try them. Another reason to go on an adventure and try something new. Doing new things as a couple and appreciating what you have are two core elements to relational happiness. It's so easy to take it all for granted until the sky falls a little. We are just finishing building an addition to our home, and I have been up to my ears in stuff I know very little about. I'm really not familiar or comfortable with power tools, building inspectors, and permits, but I'm finding out about fees and assessments. Not exactly a picnic, but it's a learning experience, and the only part I really hate is writing the checks. We built a nice space together. Spending hours picking out tile and paint was fun for her and fun for me because doing it made her happy. For me, it was all about controlling the costs, the crew, and getting the proper deliveries. This part was not really fun, other than that day at Lowe's when everything was marked down to practically nothing. So we balanced each other out because her joy did transfer over to me, even when I had to make returns. While my wife has enjoyed the entire process, for me, it was kind of like slaying a dragon, and I get the princess. My wife just sees it as an interesting new experience, and she supports me when I get overwhelmed. She is one of those people who is always willing to look for the positive, like the kid who digs through the pile of manure looking for the pony. So here I am, a slightly jaded psychotherapist who lives with a cockeyed optimist who can find something good in just about anything. A lot of other people's pain over the years, and if not for this open-minded lady I married, that stuff could get to me. Now, as I learn to see more of life through her eyes, mine are opened wider. I know that I am teaching her about life here, and I answer a lot of why questions, which can be a little taxing, until I remember that everything is new for her. That makes it new again for me, if I let it. We each have a choice whether to adopt another person's experience and add it to our own. It works for me. Dr. Barton Goldsmith is a psychotherapist, according to Dr. Barton Goldsmith.
Thank you. There's a big picture and a small story in the World Herald about our advertising campaign to lure tourists to Nebraska. Invite might be a better word. Nebraska's new offbeat tourism slogan, "On One," is debuting in print and TV ads. They tout the annual and world-class spring migration of sandhill cranes through the Central Platte River Valley. That is good enough for 500,000 chattering cranes. Shouldn't tourists follow? Nothing but flyover country, says an ad touting Nebraska from the State Tourism Commission. The ads will run including Denver, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Kansas City, Wichita, and Topeka, Kansas, from mid-March. And then that's what a poster, nothing but flyover country, or I suppose it's an ad in a magazine, perhaps. And then it has a picture of the cranes, maybe flying in front of the moon. And the reading is very small, but I'm going to try to read it to you anyway. Some people regard Nebraska as a place you cross on the way to a more interesting place. But over 500,000 sandhill cranes might disagree. Every March, they land here for a closer look at things, and flocks of humans swoop in to witness the awesomeness of a crane migration. There are those who will always think our state is strictly for the birds, but so go to visit Nebraska for a free closer look at a very interesting place.
Okay, 11:35. I don't.
Little something.
Okay.
We can tie it to business, but it's also interesting for us who take trips or who only wish we could. Allegiant Airlines will begin flying from Omaha to the Florida Panhandle. Announced Tuesday a new nonstop flight from Omaha's Epley Airfield to the Destin Fort Walton Beach Airport. The flight will begin June 7th and will operate seasonally. With the addition of the new twice-weekly flight, Allegiant will fly nonstop to 6 destinations from Omaha, to the Orlando, Phoenix, and Tampa areas, to Fort Myers, Florida, and to Las Vegas. We are pleased that Allegiant has recognized the strong travel demand from Omaha to the Florida Panhandle, said Steve McCoy, the Omaha Airport's manager for airline affairs. The white sand beaches of the Destin and Fort Walton Beach area represent a part of the popular Gulf Coast previously unserved by nonstop flights from Omaha. New nonstop destinations across several airlines as its passenger counts show strong growth. Last year's figures haven't been compiled for the full year, but as of the end of November, the airport had logged 9.5% growth in passengers over 2017 figures for the same period. If it holds for the full year, that kind of increase would beat that of 2017, when Epley had its biggest ever year with about 4.6 million passengers, logging a 6% increase in passengers from 2016.
Well, that affects our living today, doesn't it?
That's right.
Destin.
Those are beautiful beaches.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful place.
It's the whitest sand and the softest sand you could ever imagine. It's 37 minutes after the hour, and we can move now on to the business and markets. And this article, big headline, Omaha job wars. Data has shown for some time that Nebraska's metro areas, particularly Omaha and Lincoln, have had much higher job growth than the state's rural areas. But a new study from the Omaha branch of the Kansas City Federal Reserve shows where exactly job growth has been highest in the Omaha and Lincoln areas. According to the study, which used data from the Census Bureau's American Community Survey, Omaha's suburban areas are creating the most jobs. Southwest Omaha, which for purposes of the study included all of Douglas County, south of Pacific Street, and west of 72nd Street, had the highest job growth at nearly 4% annually from 2012 through 17. Excuse me. Sarpy County, with growth of nearly 3%, and Northwest Omaha at around 2%, also ranked highly. The study Lancaster County in half, with the dividing line almost right through the center of Lincoln. The south half of the county saw annual job growth around 2%, essentially tying with Northwest Omaha. Northern Lancaster County did not fare as well, with less than 1% growth, which among the regions was better only than southeast Douglas County, which mainly includes the city of Omaha. The study also broke down employment by industry, which showed North Lancaster County has slightly more construction, manufacturing, and retail trade employment than the south part of the county, while the south has more healthcare and financial and professional services employment. Overall, both Lincoln and Omaha saw the most growth in professional services and retail trade at 9%, and both saw a decline in manufacturing employment. The study, which was written by Nathan Kaufman, Vice President and Omaha Branch Executive, and Research Associate John McCoy, said that the steady employment gains in suburban areas combined with a rebound in manufacturing employment and strong gains in other industries, positive outlook for Nebraska's labor market for the coming year. You can see that bit.ly/2MAELHT, whatever that is.
Don't know. Here's a story from the business page, the money page of the World Herald. We only have a page of business news today. And the headline reads, "New sign of weakness in China edges U.S. stocks downward." From New York, stocks took small losses Monday after China reported a drop in exports in December, but the market didn't come close to matching the plunges it took in the last few months. Indexes in Europe and Asia headed slightly lower after the latest report added more evidence that China's economy is weakening. Major U.S. indexes fell about 1% at the start of trading, but they soon recovered much of what they lost. Technology companies slumped. Drug makers fell after Democrats in the House of Representatives announced an investigation into prescription. A strong quarterly report from Citigroup helped bank stocks trade higher. China's exports slipped in December, and exports to the U.S. fell 3.5% as rising tariffs and broader weakness affected the world's second largest economy. Concerns about the Chinese economy and the overall global economy were a major contributor to the market's plunge in late 2018. Mark Esposito, president of Esposito Securities, his reaction to the news from China suggests that stocks won't fall further than they did in December. That's a very positive sign. Short term, we may have found a bottom, he said. People lose faith and hope when the market drops 20% in a very short period, as it did. The S&P 500 index dropped from late September until the day before Christmas, partly because investors were worried that the global economy was slowing dramatically and could fall into a recession. Since December 26th, stocks have regained about half of what they lost in the downturn. The stock market's recent rally suggests that investors aren't quite as worried about the global economy or the state of trade talks. And there's one other, PG&E Corporation, as Pacific Gas and Electric, I'm pretty sure, said it will file for bankruptcy in California after the cost of wild potential liabilities of $30 billion or more. gutting its share price and prompting the departure of its chief executive officer. The San Francisco-based company said it intends to reorganize under Chapter 11 of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code on or about January 29th, after giving the required 15-day notice to employees, according to a filing at the Securities and Exchange Commission Monday. The company had market value wiped out since the deadliest wildfire in California's history, called the Camp Fire, began in November.
Well, from Ames, Iowa, faster conversion of land into agricultural production in recent years has raised the region's carbon cost of producing grains, according to research from Iowa State University. The study, published in the academic journal Environmental Research Letters, shows that increases in crop production due to expanding acreage devoted to agriculture in 5 Midwestern states between 2006 and 2016 reduced the region's soil carbon content. The reduced carbon storage capacity means that some carbon from soil and plants is released into the atmosphere instead. The study found that for every kilogram of additional grain yield added during the 2006 to 16 period, the region's soil lost 2.3 kilograms of carbon.
Well, it's time for us to remind you that WellCare of Nebraska to bring you today's reading of the Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal-Star. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska.
Thank you, Deb. Well, it's 44 minutes after the hour. Time for sports. Well, Nebraska basketball. Nebraska finished the job, firing out of the gate with their best start of the season and playing some of their best defense of the year. The Husker men led from tip to finish in a 66-51 win over number 25 Indiana on Monday at Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Indiana. It wasn't over jubilant. There wasn't a Gatorade bath or anything crazy. It was just a very happy, almost relieved team. I think a more confident team, too, Nebraska coach Tim Miles said on his post-game show on the Husker Sports Radio Network. Man, I'm just really happy for the guys, and it gives us a shot of confidence. Nebraska was stung in a 2-point loss at Maryland, didn't play well at Iowa, and lacked its customary fire in a home win against Penn State last week. But after a win, 3-loss start to conference play, Nebraska is back to 500 in the league and has a 13-4 record overall, and has Michigan State coming to town Thursday as the Huskers put their 20-game home winning streak on the line. We don't stink, Miles said. We can, but it's going to happen over 32, 33 games. I think they were worried like, oh no, what's going on? I think maybe they hear all this stuff about the Big Ten, and I think it was more of a realization that, man, this is going to be a grind. I hope we can do it. And now to come out and prove you can do it in a tough environment like this, and you started the game to nothing, led by 18 points. Midway survived a 5.5-minute scoreless spell to end the first 20 minutes, then squeezed the life out of Indiana's offense in the second half. After Indiana, 12 wins, 5 losses, 3-3 in the Big Ten, went halftime deficit to 3 on Devontae Green's three-pointer with 16:31 to play. Nebraska responded with a layup from Tanner Bochard and back-to-back three-pointers by Glenn Watson to push its advantage back to 11. Indiana got no closer than the rest of the way, and the Huskers led by double digits for the final 13 minutes. The loss was the Hoosiers' first home defeat this season. Indiana's 51 points were a season low, 12 points less than its previous low. The 63-point total came against Michigan, which has one of the best defenses in the league. Deb?
Thanks. Here's some news about the Omaha Sports Commission. Omaha Sports are going to have their OSCA night starting in May. The Omaha Sports Commission Awards, OSCA, say it like a New Yorker and you get the reference, which will include inductions into the Omaha Sports Hall of Fame, will be presented at an evening event May 30th at the Hollins Center. Josh Todd, president and executive director of the Omaha Sports Commission, said the OSCAs will serve as an annual fundraiser for the nonprofit commission. As someone fairly new to Omaha, I was astounded at Omaha's incredible sports history and believe we celebrate our past while providing new opportunities to recognize themes, ensuring we continue to enrich Omaha through sports the year round, Todd said in a statement. There are sports commissions around the country using a similar award system, and we think the OSCAs will be extremely popular in Omaha. The president and founder of the Omaha Sports Hall of Fame said he's eager to resume the Hall of Fame inductions after a 2-year hiatus. In the hall are 76 individuals, teams, and a horse, Omaha, the 1935 Triple Crown winner. The hall also honored a Sports Person of the Year, an award the Omaha Sportscasters Association had presented for 45 years until 2002. Teaming up with the Omaha Sports Commission will allow our organization the ability to honor athletic community in a manner that truly acknowledges individual and said in a statement. Omaha Sports Hall of Fame members will continue to be featured at the Durham Museum and also will be showcased at the Omaha Sports Commission website. Bradford said a committee is finalizing the same inductees. Todd, to be announced are ticket, sponsorship, and awards details.
Thanks, Deb. Well, Kyler Murray, the first-round Major League Baseball draft pick and Heisman Trophy-winning Oklahoma quarterback, declared for the NFL draft on Monday. Excuse me. Murray announced his decision in a tweet, ending his brief and storied college career. What's next for the Murray is not yet known. The Oakland Athletics made the speedy outfielder the 9th overall selection last June and agreed to a $4.66 million signing bonus. The A's agreed to let him continue playing football, and he made the most of it by winning the Heisman in his only season as a starter. He passed for 4,361 yards and 42 touchdowns and ran for 1,001 yards and another 12 scores, posting the second-best passer efficiency rating in FBS history. As Murray dominated, his draft stock improved. Jim Callis, a senior writer on MajorLeagueBaseball.com, said the A's couldn't have foreseen that Murray would be a potential first-round NFL draft pick because of his size. Listed at 5'10 and 195 pounds, Murray would be a small quarterback in the NFL by any standard. The primary risk was, what if he off field, Callis said, recalling his conversation with scouts before the season. I don't think anybody was saying he could be an NFL first-round pick. Once the NFL emerged as a potential option for Murray, the representatives of the A's and Major League Baseball met Sunday with Murray, and the possibility existed that Oakland could offer more money by putting him on the 40-man Major League roster. Even with the A's efforts, Murray would have a shot at a bigger payday sooner in football, and he wouldn't have to go to the minor leagues. Callis and other observers say it is very unlikely Murray will be able to play both sports because he's a quarterback. Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders pulled it off, but Jackson was an outfielder and a running back, and Sanders was an outfielder and a cornerback. This isn't Bo Jackson showing up and here we'll pitch you the ball and you outrun everybody, or Deion Sanders helicoptering in and his great speed coverage skills, Callis said. When you're a quarterback, you have to put in hours and hours of study running an offense. You can't play both sports when you're a quarterback. I think if he wants to play quarterback, which appears to be his greatest love, there can't be any question that he's 100% football. Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley said in November that if anyone could play both sports, it's Murray. I don't want to put it past him, Riley said. A lot of people would say he can't do what he's done right now. How well he performed for our baseball group here this spring and how well he's played here for us. So there's certainly some different dynamics with it.
Thanks, Don. From Lincoln, Maurice Washington officially has more company in the Nebraska football backfield. Dedrick Mills, the Garden City, Kansas Community College star who committed to NU months ago during the December signing period, signed Monday evening. He'll join the team in the summer. The 5'11", 215-pound running back bulled his way to 1,358 yards and 19 touchdowns for the Broncbusters this fall and is expected to immediately add depth to a backfield that lost 1,000-yard rusher Divine Ozigbo to graduate. Originally from Waycross, Georgia, Mills was not immediately available for comment as his last known phone number had been disconnected. Requests on social media either. An NU spokesman confirmed that Mills will arrive in the summer. It'll be his second Power 5 school. His first, Georgia Tech, was a fit on the field. He rushed for 771 yards and 12 touchdowns as a true frat off it. Just before the beginning of his sophomore season, he was kicked off the team for a third positive drug test, which triggered automatic dismissal. The school has since changed its rules. Mills transferred to Garden City and spent most of 2017 hurt. But in 2018, he returned to form. But he didn't sign with NU in December. On the first day of the early signing period, he appeared in a Ware County, Georgia courthouse on July charges of speeding and failure to appear in court. He turned himself in on those charges and received probation, according to a Ware County court official. Ostensibly, he's the sixth scholarship running back for NU, but none of them, including Washington, has rushed for more yards at the Power 5 level than Mills did in his 1 year at Georgia Tech. Along with Mills and Washington, who had 676 yards from scrimmage as a true freshman, NU has sophomore Jalen Bradley, senior Wyatt Mazur, and incoming true freshman Ronald Tompkins and Ramir Johnson. The Huskers now have 24 signees in their 2019 recruiting class. They also added graduate transfer Darian Daniels at defensive tackle. Nebraska can likely add 30 players in this cycle.
Well, here's some college basketball scores and news. Tyus Battle scored a season-high 32 points in Syracuse 2-3 zone defense to rattle number one Duke in overtime as the Orange pulled off the upset on the road 95-91 on Monday night. With swingman Cameron Reddish out with an illness and point guard suffering a shoulder injury roughly 5.5 minutes in, Duke was down 2 starters and was a completely different team, and the Orange took full advantage. Pascal Chukwu added 10 points and a career-high 18 rebounds, while Elijah Hughes added 20 points. Frank Howard finished with 16, and O'Shea Brissett had 14 for the Orange, who are 12-5 overall and 3-1 in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Zion Williamson had a career-high 35 points and 10 rebounds, and his free throw with 16.2 seconds left in regulation tied it at 85 for Duke, who was 14-2 and 3-1 in the conference, but he missed a second go-ahead foul shot. Pittsburgh beat number 11 Florida State 75-62, 30 points and 7 rebounds. In the Big Ten, Maryland, number 19 Maryland, 64, Wisconsin 60. Anthony Cowan Jr. hit a pivotal three-pointer with 44 seconds left, and number 19 did end up edging Wisconsin at home. Wisconsin blew a 21-point lead in the second half. How did that?
Well, it was far from an easy decision, but the more T.J. Hawkinson thought about it, the right end concluded that taking his game to the next level was the right decision at the right time. On the final day he could declare himself eligible for the 2019 NFL Draft, the sophomore who won the John Mackey Award as college football's top tight end became the fourth Hawkeye underclassman in recent weeks to announce plans to leave school. Hockenson made his decision public Monday morning on Twitter following Iowa tight end Noah Fant, the defensive back Amani Hooker, and defensive end Anthony Nelson into the draft. This was a very difficult decision because of the love and respect I have for the University of Iowa, Coach Kirk, and the entire coaching staff, along with my teammates, Hockenson wrote. However, my dream has always been to play in the NFL, and I believe now is the right time. He reached that conclusion after what he labeled tremendous thought and consideration. In addition to thanking family members for their support, Hockenson went on to thank members of the Hawkeye football program for challenging him to become a better player and person. I look forward to this next chapter and am grateful that I was first and always will be an Iowa Hawkeye, Hockenson wrote. Ferentz acknowledged for the first time the January announcements by Hockenson, Hooker, and Nelson in a statement issued Monday, the first day of spring semester classes at Iowa. Amani have been outstanding members of our team on the field and as leaders within the program, Ferentz said. While we are disappointed to see them leave, we recognize this is an important decision and we wish them the very best draft. He offered similar wishes to Fant, an Omaha South graduate departure in December prior to Iowa's Outback Bowl win over Mississippi State. The quartet are looking to join a group of 170 players Iowa has sent to the NFL during Ferentz's 20 seasons as the Hawkeyes coach, including 66 draft picks and 104 who signed as free agents. Hockenson, the first Hawkeye to win the Mackey Award since 2002, makes his move after leading the Hawkeyes with 49 receptions for 760 yards and 6 touchdowns during Iowa's recently completed 9-4 season. He completed his career with 3 catches for 43 yards in the Outback Bowl, including receptions for gains of 20 and 22 yards on consecutive plays midway through the fourth quarter that helped set up a field goal that provided Iowa with its 27-22 winning margin. Hockenson's 760 yards are the third most by an Iowa tight end in a single season, the 807 and 760 yards Marv Cook gained in 1987 and 1988, respectively.
Well, it's 12 o'clock, and that means our time is up. So for Don Van
And Deb 80.
So long, everyone. Have a great week. It's going to be cold at the end of this week, so stay warm.
Thank you very much to Don Van and Deb 80 for doing a splendid job reading from the Lincoln Journal-Star and the Omaha World-Herald today. You're tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska, proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for 44 years. Radio Talking Book is brought to you with the cooperation of Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. All right, folks, stay tuned next for the Nebraska Life Hour, followed by the bookshelf coming up on Radio Talking Book every noon. And as Don said, stay warm. Bye-bye, folks.